Did you actually do Aussie Driver Search?
I did, yeah. It was, I don't remember which year it was, but
was that the 86 year or that Aussie race car year? And then they did the V8 supercar and then went broke.
It was the last year before they went broke, I think.
Yeah.
So I test drove a V8 Ute, an 86, and...
Did you do the supercar or not? Super 3 or not?
No. I was unfortunately not good enough.
Yeah. Did you like the concept though?
I think it's a great concept. I think obviously the way that turned out was unfortunate for certain people involved, but but the concept is good. I think it's obviously easy to speak about it from the outside, but just from what I understand of it and how it was sort of going in its early years, I think it would work really well.
Can you explain how the Kaizen Award works, type of thing?
Yeah, sure. Essentially, the 86 series has an award each year called the Kaizen Award, which is effectively it's sort of a little bit like a Best and Fairest Award, but there's more criteria that you have to satisfy. So there's you got to be able to present well for media and also just to the general staff and whatever, and the people that work directly around you in the industry and everything. You can have like minor incidents, but you can't be getting in trouble all the time on track. So if you get, if they say there was two people evenly sort of standing for the prize, if one person had a whole heap of penalties against them and the other didn't, they'd choose the one that didn't.
Okay.
You've got to sort of try and work hard on improving yourself, which is actually one of the main criteria for it. You've got to really have an interest in trying to do better and improve your performance and try and work with the tools available to improve your performance and get a better outcome. Which I'm not going to say it was the only factor, but one of the factors in me winning it that year was the second. It was actually at Townsville. They did a workshop for people who'd near been on a street circuit before, or to Townsville before.
Toyota did this,
as part of the.
Wow, that's actually pretty cool.
One of the driver coaches. It was Bargs, Jason Barguana.
Yeah, right.
Went through a full workshop on what you should do, what you shouldn't do, where to look at each corner, and things you should be aware of, and things to be thinking about it while you're driving around and everything.
Yeah.
And there was other aspects to it as well, but that was the main part of it. And he sort of asked everyone, there was an open invitation to everybody on the grid. He said, even if you've done it before, you might learn something by coming to have a listen or whatever, which, is true. You can always learn more, obviously.
So everyone's invited or just the rookies?
No, everybody's invited.
Okay.
And 2 people turned up. So
yeah.
It's a bit unfortunate because it is actually
Wait, so 2 people turned up to this thing with Barguana?
Yep.
Just you and, do you remember the other person or not?
Don't remember the other person, no. But there was only a handful of, it was 2, and then I think as, a bit later than when we originally turned up, when it was supposed to start, other people did turn up, but it was only a handful of people, which I think contributed to it, I'll say, to them making that decision in the end. But yeah, I got a lot out of it.
What did you learn from it, though? Because I've never raced on a street circuit. I've only done state racing. So if you were to teach me from Bargs, what would you teach me?
Look up the road even further than you normally do, because there's generally speaking, you can't see a lot. Your vision's really reduced in street racing because you don't have.
There's a lot of walls.
There's a lot of walls, but they hide the next flag point, so you can only usually see 1 or 2 flag points ahead. Whereas somewhere like Phillip Island or something, or Eastern Creek, you can see several, and you might be able to see, let's say 200 meters ahead of you at any time. Some places at Townsville, you can only really see 50 meters ahead. So you need to be looking as far up the road as possible.
Yeah.
Which sounds like obviously a fairly simple thing, but it does actually make a difference if you consciously try and do it.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when you make passes and obviously on the receiving end of being passed, think about where you're going to end up if you commit to the pass. Because as the passing car, obviously you've got to commit to your overtake because the braking zones are so short generally on street circuits, especially with a car with ABS, you might only be braking for 20 meters or something in some places, and that's not a lot to get a full car's overlap on someone.
Yeah.
And if you overcook it and shoot past them and hit the wall on the outside on the exit, you can have the whole field pile into you. So,
yeah, right. And Toyota, and obviously Toyota wants to keep a good nature with supercars to keep racing or something.
Absolutely,
so that will play into it too.
Yeah, 100%. And they absolutely ream us if we
cause a massive accident.
Yeah, if we cause problems and have
like it was a bit of a shit show at Bathurst in the wet,
yes.
which kept up the highlight. I was stoked watching you with Brooke and I were watching back at home by that point. How like you managed to like avoid all those cars at the time at Bathurst. Like
someone said to me sent me a message after that race finish. They're like, "Oh, you're on TikTok," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't have a TikTok account." And they're just like, No, you're on TikTok. Like your race is on TikTok, and I'm like, right, okay. I look it up, and it's this perfect shot of me just skating through the marbles, and I'm just like, yeah, that's me. So,
so back to the street circuit stuff. Yeah.
No,
so you can't cause massive accidents.
You just got to be aware of the consequences of sort of the decisions you make. You know, at another track, you might have like a half a look and be able to pull out of it without causing a problem. It's very hard to do that on a street circuit. You got to commit to the pass, because if you just leave your nose in, you're going to turn the person around, and either they'll hit the fence or they'll tag you as you come past, and then you'll hit the fence. So you got to be a bit more careful than what you normally are. Obviously it's always good to be careful, but you should be a little bit more sensible and sort of thinking ahead of where you are. Probably another thing is be careful on the starts. This is sort of true at a few non-street circuits as well, but particularly Townsville because it's quite narrow.
Yeah.
If you're jumping off the start line, always be ready for the car ahead to stall, and be like have a plan set in your mind already for where you're going to go. I noticed actually Townsville this year, the gap between the left grid and the left wall is actually about 1 1/5 car widths wide or something.
Yeah.
Trying to get through that gap
would not work.
It's going to be pretty spicy. If you think you can get your whole car through there without hitting anything, go for it. But
multicolored car by the end of the first lap.
That's right. I mean, and keeping that in mind, like that's coming from the left side, but if you're on the right hand side at Townsville, there is a little bit more space because there's a grass section on the right. But if you already know, like if you have in the back of your mind that the guy on the left side is probably going to go to the middle if he has that problem, it doesn't help you if you also go to the middle and you have like side to side contact. So you should already be thinking, if it's possible, I want to go to the right.
Yeah.
So just thinking about all those things beforehand and having a clear plan before you even start would help.
Who's on the radio for you? Your dad all the time, or
yeah?
Okay, because you've had Scott, you've had obviously we had that ex-Aussie Driver Trent as well turn up. Did you actually do Aussie Driver Search?
I did, yeah. It was, I don't remember which year it was, but
was that the 86 year or that Aussie race car year, and then they did the V8 supercar and then went broke?
It was the last year before they went broke, I think.
Yeah.
So I test drove a V8 Ute, an 86, and...
Did you do the supercar or not? Super 3 or not?
No. I was unfortunately not good enough.
Yeah. Did you like the concept though?
I think it's a great concept. I think obviously the way that turned out was unfortunate for certain people involved, but the concept is good. I think it's obviously easy to speak about it from the outside, but just from what I understand of it and how it was sort of going in its early years, I think it would work really well as having the top level as being like an 86 campaign or something.
I agree. I said this on another podcast. If Kyle had stuck to like 2 classes instead of 4, he would have made his money on his profit, because he would have only had 3 cars to look after for the same car. But he went out. I get why he went the supercars direction, because everyone who's a motorsport fan in Australia wants to race a supercar.
Yeah.
Most do.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your take on that?
I think he's you can't fault the guy for trying to give people access to a dream that a lot of people have. And I think it's more unfortunate than anything, as I said, how it turned out.
Yeah.
I do feel sort of a little bit bad for the people involved at the time who thought they had something they didn't.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, as far as I understand from the outside, it was working quite well when the 86s were the
main thing.
The main thing, yeah. And I think given my experience of 86s, they're fairly cost effective to run. So
what's a budget for one of them? Say if someone off the street wants to, even from state racing like myself, wants to go race an 86, what's like the yearly budget on one of those things?
I think it depends a little bit on how you want to do it. If you're going to do it yourself, you're going to save money obviously on the weekend to weekend operation,
logistics and all that.
Yeah, definitely.
Accommodation.
But you're obviously going to have to buy the car. So from the investment side of it, you're going to need, I'd say, probably 50 grand minimum to get a good car. Anything less than that, and you're going to have to give it a fairly good look over before you take it on track. And above that, you're probably looking at maybe 30 to 40 for the year. So in running costs, that's factoring in a little bit of allowance for damage and stuff like that.
So this is a privateer budget.
Okay. If you're going to do it,
that's what I'm kind of talking about, a privateer budget.
Yeah. It can be. You can get away with a little bit less than that if you have a fairly clean year. Like this year, I probably spent less than that because I didn't have too many accidents, fortunately. But you need to factor in some, like a little bit of accident damage, because there's nothing worse than doing 3/4 of a series and then running out of money because you can't afford to fix the car and you miss, the next round or whatever. So,
but those Toyota, the current model, the current gen, as I'll call it, you can build the car yourself and go racing, can't you? Compared to the new ones coming out of the box, and you literally Toyota gives you that car. Is that what's happening?
Correct. Yeah, the new ones are going to be turnkey. So Neil Bates Motorsport's building. I'm not quite sure how many the first run is going to have. But yeah, so he'll be building. I think it's 30 or something. And then they're going to be sold to obviously people who want to run the new car in the series. The existing cars were given a spec to build to, I believe. The cage was a certain spec, and as long as you, as far as I understood it, I think you bought the car, got the cage put in. You could do it yourself if you were knew how to do it.
Yeah.
And then it gets certified as being a particular FIA grade, I think. Once you do that, everything else is basically bolt-on parts. So they're pretty easy to work on and build, to be honest. Like we always worked on it ourselves and never had an issue. Got gearbox changes down to about an hour.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. Yep.
That is impressive.
Yeah, it was once you do it about 5 million times, you get good at it. So turns out I'm a little bit harder on the gear than some other people.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, it's they're fairly easy to work on. The worst we had was when I got the back of someone at Newcastle at the end of 2019. And it sort of crushed some of the front end and whatever. No rail damage or anything major like that, but just a lot of like bodywork stuff, because they're all really thin, so they bend very easily. And the other thing it did was punch the top of the oil cooler off.
Yep.
So when that happened, that sprayed oil everywhere. And the motor was fine, but we took it out anyway to go and get checked. And just in replacing all that stuff, that probably took us about 2 weeks total of just like that's with me and Dad both working normally as well. Like that's just in the evenings and whatever going to do it. But that's probably the worst thing we had, to be honest. If you do a cage, that's bad. Like you're gonna have to do a lot more work. But
pretty much replace a car at that point.
Yeah, then you got bigger problems. So it'd be hard to do that though. Like I've never really even heard of someone damaging a cage. In most of the accidents that have happened, maybe 2 or 3 or something in the entire time I did the series is all I ever heard of being like unrepairably bad. There's been some really big ones that were actually completely fixable. So it's dependent on what your skill set is, I guess, more than anything. If you've got mechanical sort of skills or you add half mechanical mindset, you can work out what to do. The rest of it's pretty straightforward.
Unfortunately, I know how to go straight, but don't know how to fix. That's myself.
Yeah.
I got to ask though, because you were battling hard with the kid that you tutored in Formula Ford to race against, and then ended up battling him technically 2 years in a row, Zach?
Yep.
Yeah. So how was it like going back before the Toyota days? Obviously working with. So who was his teammate? You had
Zach and Cooper Allen at the time,
and then potentially it was going to be me, but that went off the cards.
Yeah.
Which no one knows until now.
No, we it's too much. There's a lot of reasons as to why we stopped doing Formula Ford stuff. But the coaching Zach was actually really good. It was particularly with him and Cooper at the time, they were both very competitive and equally sort of equally matched in terms of pace. I think Cooper was generally quicker in qualifying, and Zach was generally would come through in the races, or vice. Like it would sort of depend a little bit on the track. I think Cooper was stronger at Eastern Creek from memory, and Zach was stronger at Wakefield. But the dealing with, I can't remember how old they would have been at the time, like 16 or something. Dealing with two 16-year-old young fellas is can get very difficult.
While you were racing 86
that's right.
At the time.
That's right. While we were racing, and also
they would just bring their cars to the track, wouldn't you? And you would coach. Is that how it would work, or did you maintain their cars as well?
No, generally they maintain the cars.
Okay.
I think a couple of times, obviously, we gave them some direction on things to do. But the main part of the looking after the cars, they managed.
Yep.
For me at the time, it wasn't feasible to maintain the cars myself because I was still at uni as well at the time, so I was trying to do uni racing.
Yeah.
Work,
how did you juggle? How did you juggle that? Did you have like less sleep in some areas? And
yeah, I'm catching up on all of it now, mate. No, it's the same as anything, man. You sort of allocate your time out and try and get ahead of the curve and get things planned early. It was a little bit easier then because uni was quite flexible with my it was pre-COVID, but they were still flexible with being able to work or like do class away from uni. So that side of it was probably good from uni perspective, but I did actually have to drop back to doing it part-time to get everything done because I just couldn't do the like sometimes with uni you can't control the times they'll give you. They'll just tell you these are the days you're available. So and you can't do much about it.
Yeah, it's like if it's a 6 p.m. class or a midday class and you're in the middle of everything, you're like, well, that just like stuffs up the whole day.
100%. Yeah.
And what uni were you at?
Western Sydney.
Yeah. And so were you far from home? The travel time?
It was distance-wise, it was a little way, but fortunately, I live near Blacktown, so for me going out to Penrith, I'm going against the traffic in both morning and afternoon, so it was quite easy for me to get there. It was only about 25 minutes or something each way. But the problem was I kept having these electives that were only available, like they'd give you 2 time slots, but on the same day, and it would always be a Friday every time, and I was like, why do you only offer me this on the day that I need to be available for racing?
Yeah, because Friday's the only day. The practice days and stuff.
That's it.
Frustrating.
So I was getting pretty annoyed, but
so your dad would take over technically at the track till you would get there. Is that what would happen with the 2 boys?
Sometimes, like he would do the Friday if I wasn't able to be there at all. I did try hard to be there on the Fridays as much as possible. But sometimes he'd do the Friday and manage it, and I'd come on the Saturday, Sunday to help. Basically. Did Cameron
Hill give you any advice in running a team? Because he was doing it himself. Do you know what I mean? He was doing similar.
He did originally, just in regards to sort of the service side of it, I guess, like what service equals sort of what. Yeah.
No training
what
on
dollar figure.
Yeah, right. No training on teenagers.
No, I don't think anyone even... I think if someone could give training on teenagers, there'd be a whole heap of mums all around the world lining up, ready to pay any money. So,
that would pay our bills for car racing.
For sure. If I knew that secret, mate, I'd be supercars already. What do you like? It's I mean, the boys are actually quite good. It wasn't always the boys that was the problem. It was the parents living vicariously through their children. That was a little bit more.
Rick was quite good with the engineering though.
He was. He still is. He knows. Like obviously, Rick's had a very extensive history in motorsport, so he knows a thing or two. But he was always quite good. But Neil knew what he was doing as well. Like Neil was an engineer, is an engineer as well. So they were both. They both knew what they were doing. It's just obviously you get very emotional in the context of the situation when you're seeing your son race and you want him to win, and they both knew each other, so it was sort of a bit like, we want to be friends, but I also want my son to beat your son. So, it's the way it goes, unfortunately, with those sort of things where you got to balance, friendship and what you're trying to do it for.
I'm pretty sure that year those 2 boys were around down on myself and Lachlan as well. That's when the double points playing came into play as well for those boys too. I think.
Yes, it was in the last round.
I think that's where the pressure came from, though. Do you know what I mean? Because you both, like, I've come from last year round down, and you're trying to hunt the championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where the pressure might have come from. Or do you reckon it was just literally mono because both kids want to win anyway? They don't care.
There was pressure there, but what happened in the last round was more just an accident than anything else. They both made a bit of a judgment error in committing to a move that wasn't necessary at the time.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the way it goes, unfortunately, in racing. You sometimes make good decisions, you sometimes make bad decisions, and you got to live with them. I think they both realised after the fact that in some ways, actually, to be honest, it would have been a little bit worse had one of them won the series and the other one lost it due to that accident.
Yeah, okay.
Because they both didn't win the series, I think they both realised that having a bit more foresight in what you're actually trying to achieve there, particularly since it was only the first race anyway, they both probably learnt that the championship game doesn't get decided till the last race, and trying to win it in the first race of the weekend doesn't get you anywhere.
Want to hear more? Each week we will share the hottest clips from our guest interviews on YouTube. But to hear the full episode, make sure to subscribe or follow us on your favourite podcast platform.